13 tips for free-to-play players. I actually came across this post here on Reddit this morning. Paulo Zamer from 23 hours ago posted this 13 tips for free-to-play. Now we're going to go through, we're going to talk about each one of these starting with number 1, but we're also going to say whether I agree, disagree, and we're going to try to have a conversation around each one of these points, so by the end of it, maybe we will have all learned something, or at least it'll be an interesting conversation. So let's discuss this. Accept the fact that you'll never be the top dog on your server. I actually love this point right off the bat. I think this is one of the better points to make. I come from games like Genshin Impact, Raid Shadow Legends, Eve Echoes, Marvel Future Revolution. I come from these heavily monetized games that we all consider like pay to win, and that, you know, are problems essentially in what we consider the gaming genre. And one of the things you can do to enjoy them more in order to get around the fact that the monetization is typically fairly disgusting in these type of games is just accept the fact that, look, monetization is a problem. I'm never going to be spending $50,000 on these games. I can't compete with the rich people who will. So instead, my gameplay enjoyability experience is going to have to come out of the actual gameplay, not from the score related to that I'm getting from achieving the gameplay. So for that reason, I actually think this is a good point when it comes to casually enjoying the game. However, if your enjoyment of games comes out of competition, then the fact that you can never be number 1 or even strive for it can be disappointing for free-to-play people. But let's continue here. Choose your server carefully. I think this is another fantastic point. In my personal opinion, the servers can change with time. So I think that this is something where it's more make sure you didn't just join a server that's massively underpopulated. You actually do want a server that's fairly populated. It might seem like, well, if you go with a smaller server, there's less whales. It's actually kind of the opposite way. If you go to a small server and there's only one whale, then that one whale runs the server. And what's better is to have a bigger server where there's almost a million whales, because in that way you can probably fit in with one of these groups and get carried, because this game in particular has a lot of carrying mechanics. So I think he's right about choosing that there. Okay, learn how to properly use the party finder, basically, or use it efficiently. The party finder is okay in this game. I don't think it's amazing, but basically, yes, you can find parties for your dungeons. I'm not going to say it works all the time. I think a better fix for this would just to be less to run dungeons solo and have it scale, 25, 50, 75%, or 100% harder, depending upon, how many different additional people we have in the party, etc. So while I agree with this, I think the reason this one's in here is because there's a problem with the game currently related to dungeons and solo play, and this point doesn't need to be in there once that's fixed. Do everything you can to gain all of the legacy of Horadrim gems as quickly as possible. I actually disagree with this. I don't think that keys in the super short term are important. I think the legacy of Horadrim is something you do over time. You gather your keys. But let's continue, because I see number 5 here talks about this, so maybe he says this here. So 5, hoard most of your keys until you have 377 of them, and then he goes on to say that this is effectively the best way to do all of it. That's correct if you want to actually complete all of it. However, if you're trying to get the legendary, or I should say the culling stone, or whatever it's called, the Iban's tenacity that comes out of the chest, they'll give you bonus damage and life. I would actually recommend just doing the first chest every day, because it's free, and the other ones in that same room you can do as well, and they are fairly cheap. And I actually got mine out of the first one, and I had been paying to max out all of the chests every single day using platinum. It was very expensive, and I did it for like 3-4 days in a row. Then I just stopped doing it and just started doing like the basic ones because it was very expensive, and I eventually got the gem, and I've been able to level up fine. I just say do your dailies. I won't worry too much about it. Just do the first room, save the rest of the keys, and then use your keys when you have 377 is fine. Okay, but I don't think this is as big of a deal. Okay, mathematically, I just don't think it's as big of a deal. Hoard your plat to buy legendary gems. Completely agree with this point. I think if you're free to play, one of the only ways to make sure you're getting decent 5-star gems and to level them up, because you need duplicates, etc., is going to be by hoarding platinum, so that way you can purchase things off the market. I think this is a perfectly fine point. There's no denying this. They say you can sell the normal gems, you can sell skill stones, and you can sell the gem you gambled for, talking about basically your FA runes for Eternal Legendary Crest. These are all valid points. I agree with all of these. When it comes to hilts, prioritize keys over crest. I actually don't like this one. I'm going to tell you right off the bat. Keys are going to be nice because you're going to need more and more and more and more and more stones, but it gets exponentially difficult, very similar to legendary gems, in order to level this stuff up. The difference is when you max out the Legacy of Horadrim, there is no additional bonus, but if you max out like a rank 1 gem, like if you put your hilts into buying crests to get 1 stars, to get more powder, etc., maxing out 1-star gems and getting duplicates of 1-star gems are eventually going to allow you to awaken that. Then again, that's for non-free to play, so you would have to actually have a Dawning Echo now that I think about it. So let me see if that readjusts the way my brain works for this. I still think the legendary gems are personally better, okay? I do. I wonder what the comments say about this, because I think the biggest problem in the game is getting the gem fragments, and I'm trying to think of ways you can even really get it. I mean, maybe with the legendary crest, I assume he's saying you only really run the legendary crest and that there's other rare crests you get for free, like the ones in the Elder Rift. You might wind up with a legendary 2 out of the Elder Rift, but it's not guaranteed with common crests. That means they aren't needed. It just means if you've got enough hilts to buy one or the other, I recommend buying keys. Maybe I would agree with buying charms, where he says he'd buy a charm every time. I'm not sure how I feel about this. I think I'm going to leave this one up to debate. I still have the feeling I like crests better, but let's continue. So now he says only open 3 chests in Sanctum a day. Okay, so he's kind of saying what I was saying earlier, which is you only open a few of these things, you save the 377, and then you get the big payoff. That's fine. I agree with that. Always complete every daily. This is sort of the go-to standard mobile game advice. So in almost any video you're going to see from mobile gamer YouTubers where we talk about these type of things, a lot of it is like rehashing videos to discuss the daily activities and how to do them efficiently. If you pay attention, that's one of the things we hammer on a lot because it is quite important. In any game, this is something that is always going to be recommended, so I cannot disagree with it. He talks about bounties, the side quests, Ibans, your Elder's Rift to get your bonus keys, Shadow Gathering, Challenge Rift, Shadow Contracts, or the Immortal Dailies, Monster Essence, even more Elder Rifts. Yeah, sure, and I would add to this, grind even more Essence every day if you want to. 10 here, forget about moving up to the next hell level until you meet its bare minimum CR requirements. This is true. I see people struggling trying to move up, especially if you don't have all the legendaries. Like getting the essences of the legendaries is still important. You don't have to move up to the next difficulty. Like I've plenty of combat rating for Hell 4. I'm still in Hell 3 because I'm 123 Paragon. I've been slowing down a little bit. I'm like 60% experience right now where I was at 20%, just because I got tired basically, and I'm going to take a break and then we'll go back into grinding super hard. Or not take a break, but, relax a little bit is what I'm saying here. So in terms of moving up your bare minimum combat rating, I think that's actually a fairly decent point. Okay, so we are moving quite along here. The number 11, always manually check your gear for combat rating changes. This is similar to one of the videos I just put out a few days ago, which is essentially saying that green up arrows don't always mean it's an upgrade. This is correct. You have to manually wear them and make sure that they're not straight up better, because they can be. Don't worry about farming dungeons for set items until you reach Hell 3. Yeah, that's fine. I think there's nothing wrong with getting a 2-piece set out of Hell 2, because I don't think it takes forever, honestly. And if you're in Immortal early, then you have to do the dungeons literally anyway. So I think while he's right that farming dungeons, because the problem is, because he's free to play, he says Hell 3, but it's like, I can make the same argument and say Hell 4, because that's when you get rings. And if you're going to farm it before the rings, you're wasting your time a little bit, because if you're farming at Hell 4, every single dungeon is needed to get the set. Like all 6 dungeons have all 6 parts of the gear spread across them, right? Which means technically you can farm literally any dungeon at any time and you're making progress on any of the sets that you really care about, because you're going to potentially get one of the drops for them. So technically Hell 4 is when you should start grinding dungeons. So I'm not sure I agree with his point that Hell 3 is when it is instead of Hell 2, when it's like Hell 2 you could just get the 2-piece, Hell 3 you get the 4-piece. It's the same logic. Hell 3 you get the 4-piece, Hell 4 you get the 4-piece. Okay, so for me, maybe, if you don't want to farm, this just seems like copium for not wanting to farm the dungeons. I hate farming dungeons too, bro. Like that's the way the game works. The dungeons suck, we all agree to them, but you do need to farm these. You are like massively gutting yourself, especially because you said earlier here, the one I was talking about, man, like getting combat rating changes, like don't go to the next hell level till you have the bare minimum combat rating requirements. Well, dude, how are you going to do that if you're not getting dungeon sets? Because dungeon item sets are like a huge part of it. And if you want to get to Hell 3's free to play, you need combat rating, right? And you're doing your free to play. So I think that's an L in terms of the tip here. Make your own fun by setting small goals. Completely agree with this one. I like having challenges with your friends, just playing the game when you want to, doing the things that you enjoy and nothing else. These are all common strategies, not only in video games, but in life. Like, basically, this is what I see. This is a therapy tip, which is, hey, don't stress yourself out. I actually think this is one of the largest points that people miss in these type of games, because we can all sit up here and we can be like, look, the game's not as good as we hoped it was, or there's huge monetization problems, or there's pay to win, blah, 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 you know, all these problems that everyone's been complaining about and that we're all agreeing on. But at a minimum, you can get some enjoyability out of the game for free, because there is some stuff that you can do by setting your own small goals and not really focusing on trying to be the number one, because if you focus on what the game is designed to be focused on, then you're going to have to pay money. Where if you focus on what you're making the game be for you, then it's a bummer, because it's copium a little bit for me of like having to make the game good by setting your own goals. So it's a good tip, but it's also like, shouldn't the game be good enough that you don't have to make your own fun? Isn't that the point of the game, that the game makes the fun? So why are we making our own fun? Like, I could kind of understand. The TV's listening to me. Hold on. Stop listening. The TV is gonna say something, aren't you? Don't do it. Okay, well, eventually the TV might say something to me back, but we'll see about that. All right, and the last one, number 13, gambling. The rarities and antiquities dealer will allow you to gamble for mystery items. They're typically useless rubbish. Okay, so that's just factually wrong. It's a random legendary item, the same as anywhere else you would get it. And some of my best triple upgrades have been from gambling. That's only good for salvaging, but you may wind up for the legendary or set item out of the deal. Okay, so maybe he's referring to like the useless rubbish or the blue and yellows, which in that case he's right. Maybe I spoke too soon. Quality of the goods you can receive from gambling. He is wrong about this though. You cannot get set items. That's factually incorrect. The quality of the goods you receive from the gambling is directly tied to how you solo the challenge rifts. This is correct. So you have to actually do this, the challenge rifts. And that's what he says there, which is another point I've made in one of my other videos, saying that do your challenge rifts, because if you don't, all your loot is worse. So hit the like button if you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you thought about this 13 tips. I'll put a link to the article that he wrote here for the Diablo Immortal subreddit, and you can go take a look and read all of the points themselves and read the comments and see what the people think. Appreciate all the new subscriptions. Love y'all, and I'll see you on the next Diablo Immortal video.